Welcome back to the Context Coaching Podcast. We are joined today by Drew Heath of the Drew School in San Francisco, Bay Area, California. Coach, thanks for jumping on today.
Appreciate you having me on, man. Thank you.
So let's get into this. Take us through the journey. How did we end up at a school that bears your own name? You got a place named after you, and you're only 6 years into your career. Let's talk a little bit about how that happened.
Yeah, as you just mentioned, this August will be my sixth year at the school. It'll be my third year as a director of athletics. The previous three before that, I was the assistant AD and also did some stuff in admissions. But before that, I was actually living in China, in Beijing, China, coaching and playing basketball. And how I got there, going back to the beginning, originally an East Coast guy, born and raised in Connecticut, played a bunch of sports growing up. Basketball was my main thing, but played basketball, played soccer, went to a Division III school in Boston, played ball and ran track there. And then I think the typical post-college, especially like the small college, it's like, oh, am I good enough to play overseas, or what's the deal with that? So my assistant coach was in my areas, oh, you should at least go to some tryouts and things like that. So I went to one of these overseas combines. Nothing came from it, but I went there and I realized like each of us paid a ticket price to attend this. I should be on the other side of this and start working that. So immediately I went home, was brainstorming. I hit up the same guy who was like hosting that same combine. I was like, hey, I just attended your event. I'm not looking for a refund or anything. I want to help out and run the next camp with you. So I did that for the next like 2 or 3 summers. At the same time, went back, got my master's in sports management at Manhattanville College in New York. And then after grad school, was looking for jobs, had a few internships come my way, interviews come my way. Nothing really hit. So I had this idea of I've been helping guys secure basketball contracts or opportunities overseas. I haven't gone myself. Let me like take that jump. So initially I was just going to coach. I was literally like hitting up academies and all that stuff. And honestly, at first I was just looking at the English speaking countries. So I was looking at England, Canada, took Spanish in school. It's pretty broken, but I was like, I think I could do like Mexico or Spain or stuff like that. And then randomly something in China came up, and this was 2015. So I interviewed in July of 2015, got the job, and then by September I was in Beijing. Didn't speak the language, knew absolutely nobody there. But ended up going there, stayed 3 years, and then was just going to go coach. I was coaching for an MBA academy out there, the MBA Yao school. So Yao Ming was actually my boss while I was out there. And then I just stumbled upon some like semi-pro and like minor like basketball leagues out there. I was literally playing in pickup, and they were like, hey, like you're pretty good. You should make some money playing in some leagues. I'm still like fresh off the plane from the States. So I'm thinking they're talking about, oh, I'll put in $20, winning team takes the collection and gets out of here. No, like they'll pay you to play. And they were showing me these different videos and stuff. And basketball is so big out there that they basically have these kind of like minor leagues or like semi-pro leagues that are funded by like wealthy Chinese businessmen that, yeah, like I wasn't making like LeBron money or anything, but hey, here's some money that you can send home or whatever else. So the team was called the Beijing Panthers. Did that my whole time I was out there, and then moved back to the Bay with my wife. And yeah, been here for 6 years, and the whole time's been at Drew School.
Love that. Tell me, what's the connection to the Bay to begin with? Is she from there? Why not back to Connecticut? How did that
Yeah.
process work where you were like, all right, I'm pulling the ripcord on the international experience?
Yeah. So initially, my first thought of going to China was I'm just going to go for 1 year. So that's my plan. I go there. I meet this woman one night out, ends up being my wife. So that 1 year turned to 3 years. She's originally from Jersey. So I was like, hey, I've done my overseas experience. I'm getting a little homesick. Let's make the trip back. So she was actually applying to grad school, and she got into Cal out here. So two East Coast people ended up coming out to the Bay, and it's been home ever since.
Awesome. So following up on that, that's a big jump from, let's see, overseas international combine to working for the Yao Academy to playing a little professional to now I am an administrator, admissions person in the independent school world, right? So what's the connect there? Randomly just applying to anything that came across, placement agency. Talk a little bit about that for people that aren't in our world and don't necessarily understand the difference between applying for a local school district versus being in the independent school world.
Yeah. I think I was fortunate enough during those grad school years, I was working part-time as a coach back in the East Coast for other private and independent schools. So I was familiar with the scene in the market and the type of families that kind of apply and kids that go to these type of schools. So I think I wasn't too foreign to the school or the system. And then honestly, there was a job opening up with the school in the admissions department originally. I just came back from China. I was looking for basketball focused stuff, struggling. And I was like, oh, admissions, I feel like it'll be similar to recruiting, right? I think I have a muscle to do that. Go into the interview, they're like, we definitely want to keep you on the admissions team for the time being, but your whole resume is in sports. Do you also want to be the assistant athletic director? And I quickly found out that a lot of times, especially in the smaller private schools, you wear multiple hats or you do multiple roles or responsibilities. On paper, I might be the assistant AD slash admissions associate, but there's probably 20 other things that I'm being asked to do or want to do. Even now, as a director of athletics running the department, there's still a bunch of other stuff that I'm involved or a part of. Where I know other ADs at other schools or other school systems, I just am the director of athletics. This is what I do. So I think that is one of the unique things I think about working in the smaller independent school scene.
No doubt. And for people that aren't aware, that falls under our contracts as other duties as assigned by head of school, where your job is, in your case, admissions officer, assistant AD, other duties as assigned by head of
Yeah.
school. And those could be anything. But before we jump into the coaching, for those that are listening that aren't familiar with the independent school world, it is basically outside of the public school, district run, charter type programs, not even parochial from the Catholic standpoint, but schools that identify as independent. They're independently funded and often aren't in the mainstream, especially out here on the West Coast where I'm at a boarding school, which as a Connecticut person, you're probably familiar with that. But you take a swath of 100 West Coasters, probably one of them has ever heard of a boarding school. And
Yep.
ultimately, it's a little bit different setup. So, all of that to ask, as you landed back stateside from China and you're going into your first formal school setting and you're wearing multiple hats unintentionally and intentionally, both in admissions and in athletics, what are some of the things you realized right away you needed to figure out, right? Because it's, hey, I've been coaching, I've been doing this, I've been playing, I've been recruiting, but hey, being at a site based operation, what are the things that kind of caught you by surprise that you had to figure out that you can offer listeners? These are the things you got to be aware of as you're stepping into these roles.
Yeah, there was definitely a learning curve for sure. I think the first thing, and listening to some of your other interviews too, understanding the school profile, like the school identity. And I think each independent school has a different culture that kind of makes them who they are, right? I think I was fortunate enough to work in the admissions department initially. So I saw how we marketed ourselves to the independent market in San Francisco and attending these other meetings. I got to see how University did it and how Urban, San Francisco, French American International, right? So we're all in the same bucket, but we all have a little different like niche that kind of attracts a different family or might be able to offer a different program compared to a different family. And then I think with that too, understanding you have to adapt to the environment that you're in to some capacity. So great, it's I'm this guy that Yao Ming was my boss and played basketball in China. I'm a former college athlete. That's all great. How can you help my 13 or 14-year-old or 15-year-old child who may not be into any of those things? You're now working at this school, and just like you were saying, that other duties line, great, cool. That's all impressive. Pat on the back. How can you help us grow this department? Or how can you help this kid feel more comfortable within their affinity groups or after school clubs? Like you alluded to, which may not be in your actual job description, but is 100% part of the job.
Since you brought that up, let's expand on that piece a little bit, right? Where if you think of the role of athletic director or you think of the title of coach, for example, oftentimes the narrowness of that description doesn't capture all of the other things that you're doing. So I joke with my friends on this all the time where once you become the head coach, how much basketball, in this case, you're a basketball guy, I'm a basketball guy, do you actually get to do anymore? And I joke, it's about 15%. Okay. 85% of your job is the other stuff. If you want to do basketball, stay an assistant. Similarly, right, in the athletic director role, how are you ensuring, and you could talk about it through the three kind of different roles you're wearing, right? So assistant AD, head coach, AD. How do you, what's your checklist? What's your process for trying to ensure that the whole child, air quotes, are taken care of, right? Because each of
Yeah.
those roles you can get tunnel vision. But
Yeah.
talk a little bit about best strategies that you've figured out that, let's say, Drew, from a mission appropriate lens, has figured out to try to help grow the whole person versus just the athlete, considering only 3% of these kids are going to go on to play collegiate athletics anyway.
Yeah. No, you said a bunch of beautiful things there. I think definitely can't agree more with the when you're the head coach, only like 15% of it is the actual basketball part. And I think from the Drew school standpoint, our school model is basically that we believe in teenagers and we believe in their voice to make decisions. So I think one aspect, trying to give the kids as many opportunities to have control and make decisions within a controlled environment. Obviously, just not letting them run free and do whatever, but hey, I want to give you responsibility and let's see how this goes. And then I do think from the director standpoint and the head coach standpoint, it's important for me to have a good team around me. So I'm fortunate, our associate AD, amazing. He's been with me for the past 2 years, Nelson Maxwell, being able to delegate, okay, I can knock out the scheduling for these three sports. Can you knock out these three sports? And let's do that for the whole school year. And then the same thing with our basketball team. All right, okay, assistant one, can you do the film session? Assistant two, can you do 20 minutes of ball handling to start off practice? Assistant three, can you help me go over how we're going to change up our defensive strategy for the next game? Because I think when I very first started coaching, it was more like I have to do everything. This is all my responsibility. I need to be like micromanaging every little thing where it's no, it is okay to, I think it comes, you have to have people around you that you do trust. And once you do trust them, you do have to let them lead and give them opportunities to have those moments. And then I think department wide and school wide too, thinking coaching and how it applies to just like other facets of life, giving kids, like we're saying before, giving kids opportunities. And I think more in the sense of, okay, so if a kid wants playing time, hey, coach, I want more playing time. I'm going to figure out a way to give you a chance to showcase why you should get more playing time. It may not be in the game, maybe it's in a scrimmage and practice or in a drill, but I will let you know, or I will tell you this is your moment to like prove it, or I'll give you enough chances where you'll catch on. So I think it's the same thing within the school where even if it isn't an athletic focused thing, hey, can we give this kid a chance to speak at assembly? Or hey, I think this person would be a good leader for this after school club. And I've noticed a lot of times those, because most of our kids play sports here, those parents then buy in to whatever we're trying to push for athletics. Hey, we can't miss practice. Hey, you need to show up 15 minutes early. It's important you attend a lifting session. It's all right, just like you just said, I know for a fact my child's not going to play collegiate athletics, but the fact that you gave him an opportunity to speak at assembly or made him the co-leader for this after school club, we're definitely going to be on time for practice and we'll definitely sign up to go to the lifting session over the summer or something like that.
Let's dive into this piece since you just mentioned most of our kids play athletics. You're a small school like we are, assuming you're reliant on your kids to be multi-sport kids, which goes against the mainstream sports specialization the youth sports industrial complex is pushing on us these days. How have you navigated that both as an athletic director and as the basketball coach, where everything is pulling at you to make sure these kids are playing as much basketball as possible so that you can compete? But at the same time, wearing your other hat, it's no, I need you to play football. I need you to play baseball. I need you to run track. Talk a little bit about how you're balancing that in 2024 when everything is pushing against you in the other direction.
Yeah. I believe that we should play multiple sports. I grew up playing multiple sports. I think your body develops different muscle groups and different angles. And I think there's less, sorry, there's less injuries that occur if you play different sports year round. But you do have maybe, I know baseball is my thing. but I'm still going to play football in the fall and I play basketball in the winter. But I know I'm the starting pitcher. I'm trying to go be a college pitcher. Or at least that's how like it was for me growing up. So I think I approach it from like the top down. I'm thinking like from the basketball team, we definitely have a few guys who are like, this is my life. I want to try to play in college. Okay, cool. Let's start with that. So you're probably playing basketball year round. You're going to camps. You're playing AAU. Probably got a trainer, doing all that stuff. They are just doing that. Cool. I'm not going to sell you on trying to play other sports, but we do have a few kids who come in. I play soccer and basketball. Maybe I do track in the spring, and then they start getting better at basketball. Okay, I'm just going to drop the other sports. I do try to tell them, like, no, I think you should continue to play these sports. I think you should continue to play soccer in the fall. You don't have to make soccer your identity and your life, but I think you'll develop foot skills and stamina and different agility that you don't get in basketball. And then same thing for track. I also ran track too. I think track is just, I think the lifts you do in track and the sprinting, I think it just makes you a better athlete. So if they're already doing the multiple stuff and basketball is their main thing, I try to preach to them, stick with it. And then I'll give examples of Aaron Judge, Deion Sanders. I'll name the guys that played multiple sports that either they were known to play multiple sports. Hey, did you realize that Patrick Mahomes was a stellar baseball player? I know he's a stud for the Kansas City Chiefs, but he played two sports growing up. And then I think the last tier are the kids that play a bunch. And I've been telling them if if you play basketball, the same thing, we're a small school, so soccer might be your thing, but we're such a small school that you're one of our go-to guys for basketball. We need you on the court, whatever it may be. I'll tell them, hey, it's great if you can get in the gym with me over the year, get some shots up, do some drills. But if you lean into your favorite sport and play soccer all the time, that will still benefit us on the basketball court. So I think we'll have a lot of kids who during the school year do a lot and they play soccer, whatever, and then baseball in the spring, but then they don't do anything in the off season. So then when they show up in the fall, they're just starting from scratch with everything where I'm like, oh, if you just lean into one of those things, you'll develop athletic skill sets that will benefit the basketball team. So I think those are the main things, at least for the kids that are more athletic driven and athletic focused. I'm sure you guys too, we have the kids that are like, I'm either here because mom and dad making me doing it for a social reason. And at least for us, we don't have a traditional PE class. So the kids get their PE through playing sports. So sometimes it's like I'm literally on the tennis team because I need to play tennis to graduate. So that's why I'm here.
No doubt. And we are in a similar situation. And I think what I've shared with people looking at our school in the past is this is a very unique place where you can have never played this before and be in the program with a kid that's a Division I athlete. And we have to serve at our schools that entire gamut and spectrum of ability, not necessarily all on the varsity team, but within the program. So it's a unique needle to thread. And as I said, in the era of sports specialization, where you go to a bigger public school around us, and if you're not playing year-round soccer, you can't even make the freshman soccer team, which to me is absurd. But ultimately, we don't need to get on that soapbox. There's 205 episodes if people want to listen to me talk about that. I do want to go back to what you said in regards to, hey, you might be a core guy in basketball, but the soccer team needs you, the tennis team needs you, whatever that might be. And you also referenced earlier somebody that wants to play more, right? They want more playing time, maybe not in games. Yep. And one of the things that I think is super important, and I'd love to get your take on this, is one, super clear role definition. And two, how you go about those playing time conversations, both proactively before you ever even have to have them, and when they come up. And for example, we do something on my basketball team almost every single year where I give everybody a list and it's here's everybody's name on the team, write down how many minutes everybody should play. It's like they do it. Say, add them up. Okay, cool. There's 160 minutes in a game. Your total is 273. It's like, now that means some people aren't going to play. That's correct.
Exactly.
So, right. So then they get that visual. And then when they come in, it's, hey, coach, I want to play more. It's cool. Who doesn't get to play anymore? And so you've laid the foundation for those conversations so that they understand, yes, I want to play more. And here is the impact. Here are the constraints. How do you co-design a solution around that? So I love your take on what you do. Maybe that works. Maybe that has failed. What you've seen some of your other coaches do. Just tools to offer
Yeah.
out there into the world?
For basketball, and I think this is where I've always wondered, is it possible to do this with other sports? So for at least for my team, prior to the season, similar, I make them sign a contract, and it lays out like team rules and things of if you miss practice, this is what's going to happen. If you forget your jerseys, forget your shoes, if your grades slip under this, these are all the consequences. Things are going to happen. So I think off the bat, there's that kind of mindset of okay, I have to show up and be accountable. And there have been times where all right, let's look back. You missed a practice. All right, you signed the contract, so now you're not going to play in the next game, and you already knew that from the contract that we signed. Then I think if that's like a more proactive, then I think a little bit of a proactive stance. I keep as much like stats as I possibly can, even in practice. So if we do shooting drills, I know what they're shooting foul shots percentage in practice. I know what their threes are in practice. So then when it comes into the game, oh, why does Joe get to shoot more threes? Oh, because Joe shoots 70% in practice and you shoot 20%. So you can shoot more threes too. You got to up your number or hope Joe starts missing. Like either or. But if Joe keeps shooting 70 and you're at 20, then that's just what it is. And then I think film, I don't know if I'm surprised at how many coaches don't do it, but I think film doesn't lie. Whether it's, hey, you missed an assignment, or sometimes I think now with Instagram and like instant gratification, so many kids like don't see like the nuances of the game. So, okay, maybe this guy gets to play, but he only averages 4 points, 4 rebounds, and an assist. Why does he play so much? Because he makes the hockey assist every single game, or he always boxes out, or look how good he communicates. He didn't get the steal on that play, but his help side rotation was amazing. So he made it a situation that actually benefited us. So I think all of those things. And then I think sometimes it is just conversations. I think at the varsity level where I've had some guys come in and be like, hey, coach, like, what am I doing wrong? How do I get more playing time? Sometimes you didn't do anything wrong. It's the guy in front of you is averaging 20 points and 10 assists. It's just a stellar guy in front of you. And that's just the reality of it. And I think you alluded to earlier, what other roles can you do to get playing time or court time? And then I think that's where even my own journey comes into it, where yes, guys, I've played here, did that. Those are like the things I talk about on podcasts or on the resume. But there were teams I was on where I was the ninth guy, right? And how do I get on the court? Or there was a coach that was like, I don't think you're that good. We let you on the team, but you have to figure out how to get playing time. And yes, obviously I was on teams where I got to shoot all the time and I was the best player, but I've had all the experiences where I can speak to, I know what you're going through. I know what you're thinking. But I think especially for like varsity level sports, we can just have more like direct and honest conversations and just being able to hold everyone accountable too. Because then flip side, it hasn't happened yet, but if that kid does increase his shooting percentage to 70 and Joe drops down, like, all right, well, you were right. I said that it happened. So you get to shoot more now.
I also think part of those direct conversations are sometimes when you're not in the rotation and we throw you in there, we don't need you to do anything. We need you to not be seen. We need you to,
Right.
it's not a positive or negative, just be a net neutral and you earn trust, right? Because coaches play athletes they can trust, period,
Yeah.
hard stop in whatever role that is. And I think that is something that I don't necessarily think athletes are told because you want to
Right.
worry about their feelings. And I think sometimes just telling them flat out, hey, Johnny's better than you. And
Yeah.
he's not coming out. And this is where you can carve out a niche and you can star in
Yep.
this role and you can train for the one you want, which may not be until next year. And so I think the ways in which those difficult conversations can be had early, can be had often, and can bring people into alignment, it solves some of that. On that note, let me ask this, both as an AD and as a program lead, what would you say is the best thing you do in your program that directly impacts the culture you're trying to create? So top down departmentally, that is now flowing throughout the department, and then just insularly with your team, that were you to go take a job somewhere else tomorrow, regardless of the clientele, the mission and vision of the new school, it's like we are doing this 100% of the time because this is the transformational effect that it has.
Yeah. I think from department wise for the school, we've been implementing team retreats for team bonding and to build team chemistry. And I guess to be transparent, it also depends on who's the coach and the level of the team. We've done overnight retreats, but it has to be typically a female coach with a female team, male coach with a male team.
Just go, Drew, do this. Go high level, Lord and master of all, perfect scenario. If all those things are buttoned up, what does it look like? And then
Yep.
what's the scaffolded version when you don't have all those pieces in order?
Gotcha. Yep. So I guess high level, we do an overnight retreat, and it's somewhere where the time we've done overnight retreats, basically we've gone out to like the woods, to a cabin. We're not using phones. There's no internet. We have to talk to each other. We're going over team goals, team expectations, individual goals. Usually on that retreat, we'll vote for a captain. Traditionally, at Drew, we have the captains from last year pick one of the captains for the next year, and then the team votes for that second captain. So that ideally that happens at this overnight retreat. And then, yeah, we just talk about team goals and personal goals. The team goals get shared out with the team. The personal goals just stay between myself, the coaching staff, and that individual. And then I started doing individual goals for the sports team and then just life individual goals. What you alluded to, yes, if you are that kid I'm going to go play at Duke, I'm sure all of your goals are aligned with playing at Duke. But if you're part of that 97%, I'm sure you have other goals in life. So I am interested in hearing, like, hey, what do you want to do? What's your goal for the school year, your goal for life? And then go from there. And then, yeah, then come back the next day. Scaffolding down, we might just do a day retreat. It might be just a day hike or going bowling or a mini golf or something like that, but still the same format though. We'll still do the same activities. Not as easy to take away technology in those things, where I've seen for the overnight stuff, we literally collect their cell phones and we tell their parents, hey, we're going to take your kid's phone. If there's an emergency, you can contact one of the coaches, but your child will not have their phone until they go to bed at night. And you'll be amazed. It just forces the kids to talk and have conversations, where if it is a mini golf or a bowling, we can't take their phones as easily. So, all right, cool. It is what it is. So I have seen those go very well at the school. And I think it would be something I would take somewhere else, because I think, especially at our smaller schools, kind of like you were saying earlier, if this is a school where you have to play club whatever to make the freshman team, I know I'm getting talented kids. It is unfortunate, but maybe we don't have to be as close, right? If we're all good athletes and good players, we don't have to be the best of friends sometimes.
For sure, not to interrupt and not to be gendered, but especially on the boys' side. Put the guys out there, make sure you're managing egos, and you go. And the other side, there's a little bit more that comes with that, but that's where this type of thing would be super helpful.
Yeah. So no, so that's what it is, where it's okay, cool. This might be, like you said earlier, I might have a kid that's going to play Division II soccer next year, and his teammate might be a kid who doesn't know what shin guards are. So we have to make sure you guys are like good friends, laughing, joking, because then I've seen it in the past where that Division II athlete to that kid who doesn't know what shin guards are, he's super intimidated by him or her. Oh my God, this is a stud athlete. How am I on the same field with this person? What do I do? Now, if you're closer, when that athlete does get on you a little bit for making a better pass or missing an assignment, all right, cool. That's my friend. So I know we can have this back and forth a little bit, rather than, oh man, I'm scared about our star player yelling at me. In an ideal world, I'm not saying it always works, but that's the plan. And then I think team wise, I do think it is that keeping stats in practice, where I think it happens on pro teams, it happens like most college teams, but being able to be like, I know you shot well in that shooting drill, but when we scrimmaged, you're actually 0 for 7 and had 4 turnovers. That's why this guy's a starting point guard. Or I know you think you were actually killing it today, but it actually evened out because the guy you were guarding scored 10 points just like you. So I think if I were to go to another high school, that'd be one of the main things, of just keep as much information as possible. I think also for parents too. I think that's a good mechanism for, why is my kid playing? Hey, this has nothing to do with a personal angst against your child. Here are just the numbers of why we do this or why we don't do this.
Yeah, I think those are all great and things that are, especially the stats in practice. I want to ask a follow up to this in regards to, how do you do that? Managers, volunteers, you walking around with a clipboard, 5-second version of best practices that you found in that. because that's something that is obviously logical, but sometimes there's a personnel issue that gets in the way of that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it literally is some practices me walking around with a clipboard, like a mini notepad and just keeping stuff. I'm obviously not going like super detailed with all this stuff. Okay, cool. Like I'll keep track of points this game or rebounds, or we'll do a drill where we might emphasize something. So the kids are already keeping track of the rebounds, but then I'll secretly be keeping track of like how many tip passes did we get, or how many turnovers did that kid have? Because I already know the 12 guys are counting the boards. Okay, cool. I can ask them how many boards did you get, stuff like that. The days that we do have a bigger staff there, yeah, I'll have somebody else. Hey, we're gonna scrimmage for 8 minutes. Can you keep track of the stats for team A? Can you keep track of stats for team B? And then go from there. Yeah.
And technology is allowing that to be easier now anyway, right? So if you
Yeah.
have an NFHS camera in the gym and you turn it on, you can go back and watch practice and do it if you have that kind of time, whatever. There's a million ways to get it done. I just thought it was a really interesting approach. Let me follow up with this. As the AD and as a former multi-sport athlete, you've been in enough practices, games, etc. I always want to know what you're learning outside of your discipline, which is basketball, right? So what have you learned watching other coaches? Right? I always joke and say, hey, the pool is right outside my office. I watch swimming and I watch water polo every day, and I'm always amazed at how you can coach without being able to physically demonstrate something, and right, how to steal
Yeah.
from that. So what have you seen watching other sports that you've either been able to steal and or you have been able to offer to your other coaches who are looking for some guidance?
Yeah. Well, I think first, just from the AD role, when I was the assistant AD, the head AD at the time, he was actually told me if you want to follow this career path, try to learn as many sports as you can and learn all the rules that you can. So I think whether intentionally or just because I've been thrown into situations, I've just learned so much about other sports just from the job, right? Wasn't a big lacrosse guy, had to coach lacrosse 1 year, learned a bunch, gone to a crap load of volleyball games, learn how to keep the stats and the score sheets, all that stuff. So I think that's been amazing, just learning the rules of all the different sports and games. And then I think coaching, you alluded to with swimming. I was actually thinking of golfing as well too, where every time I talk to our golf coaches, it's so much of a mental approach more than what they're actually teaching. And I know for every sport, probably every coach has said the sport's 80% mental, 20% physical, or they've used some numbers like that. Even with that being said, I'm like, I still need you in the gym to shoot these jumpers, or I still need you on the track to run these sprints. Where I'll talk to golf coaches sometimes, they're just like, yeah, it's just a mental approach. Like once you get like the basic swing down, which is part of the coaching, but we're just talking about like the mental approach, how are you feeling that day? What are you thinking about when you hit a bad swing? How are you reacting to it? So that's been amazing where a lot of my other coaches, it is much more tactical or strategy or pounding the fundamentals away. But I've definitely taken that up. And I think I said it at some point too, where the game's much more mental than physical, but I don't know if I really bought into it. Now I'm like, no, I do think there's a huge mental component to this that I wasn't really tapping into before.
Yes. And I would say, as you alluded to earlier, depending on the talent base of your team, your coaching approach will shift dramatically, right? So if you
Yes.
are the golf coach, which I spent 5 years doing, and it's coach, what do I need to do? I keep slicing the ball. I have no idea. Go talk to your swing coach. It's like at the end of the day, like I can help you with your approach, how to play
Yep.
backwards from the pin to the tee instead of the other way around,
Yep.
those type things. Or to your point about basketball, it's like there's a baseline minimum of it doesn't matter how mentally dialed you are. If you can't shoot the ball, like thinking about it ain't going to change that. Yes. However, the mental game is completely undercoached for all of us
Yeah.
because you have limited time. And at our schools, generally, you're a seasonal coach and a seasonal athlete. So it's like, how do you divvy that up? And how much is 15 minutes worth? And those are the things that we all have to wrestle with. And
Yep.
everybody's got a different approach. So I think that's a great topic for people to consider. Let me ask this. You brought this up, and this could be Pandora's box, but whatever. I'd love your take on captains. You mentioned that the history and the tradition is that the prior year's captains are going to select one for the following year. And purposefully, personally, I don't believe in captains. I think it as soon as you name them, you elect them. you anoint them, you appoint them, whatever it is. It takes away permission for others to lead. And I know that's a very strong position. And I think in a sport like football, you got 60 guys, it's a little different. You need to have some layers. But I think in general, what does that responsibility entail? How do you navigate when people are elected and or chosen and they didn't ask for that and now
Yep.
they're carrying that burden and the coach is having feelings around their bad captains when they didn't ask to be captains, right? Talk a little
Right.
bit about your take, your approach, the positives, and say the gaps in that whole scheme and idea.
Yeah, no, I do think, luckily, knock on wood, it hasn't happened with any of my teams yet. But I have seen other teams where it's like, oh, this kid doesn't want to be the captain. This student athlete does not want this role of responsibility. And that is tough. I think ideally you want to mentor them and show them how this is. You were selected for a reason, and obviously people think you have leadership skills. Or sometimes at the high school level, you're just the best player, right? Like maybe you're not the best leader, but you're the best player. So I think that always is tricky to navigate. I've had situations where I've caught wind of who they wanted to elect, and I haven't stopped it like in its tracks, but I have voiced, we have agreed that this is your selection, but this is me telling you I am not a fan of this selection. So do with that what you will, but I'm letting you know now I am not a fan of this selection. So we've had that, and then in that one scenario, they did rethink and choose somebody else. And then I think I've lucked out. I think I've lucked out and have had a few good experiences where we've had some players who weren't the best player get elected to be captain just because they did have the biggest voice, biggest heart. So I was like, okay, cool, this is working out. But I definitely have heard kind of horror stories where egos get inflated or they think they're like the mini coach of the team and they're like dictating like everything that's going on. But I think for us, it's been working out great if we want to do like a captain's practice. Okay, cool. Like I know you two guys, I trust you two guys. Saturday, I can't make it. Can you go to the gym and get shots up? Hey, we're going to do a film session. Can you get the film set up? I'm coming from a meeting that I have to attend. So it's more so that stuff. And then at our school, we have weekly assemblies and we announce the games for the week. So the captains for each team, one of the responsibilities to go down in front of the school and announce we're playing international Thursday at 4 o'clock. Come out and support. Rah. So it's little things like that. Who I was talking to earlier of like, how can we give you like leadership opportunities within the school or within the team that will help you be better public speakers? Or a lot of times the captains end up being the ones that get selected to do admissions tours for like the school. All right, this is the captain of our tennis team. He or she will take you around campus. You can ask them anything sports related and go from there.
And I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier with role definition, right? What are you asking them to do? What does that
Yep.
title actually mean? Because we all know that title doesn't dictate leadership, behavior does. So
Yep.
ultimately, how are you creating constraints and or clear definitions of here's what you are doing, here is what this means, and let me help you be successful at said role, right? If you don't do that, then you end up in the weeds on so-and-so's not performing as a captain or as a
Right.
leader when you've never positioned them for success to do. Let me ask this. 6 years now at Drew, couple years coaching at schools before that, and then in the academy in China for 3 years. What would you say if you could identify maybe one or two moments where you failed or fumbled, which was then transformative on your journey to success in regards to being a professional, being education-based coach versus say a club coach, right? What are some kind of bumps along the way that have helped shape and prepare you for success now?
Yeah, I think I alluded to it before. I think just in terms of the playing career, and we all do, I think it's just human nature, right? If I'm applying for a job, like my resume are just the highlights and just the best part of my story and journey. But I've been cut from teams, I've been sat on the bench, I've been told I wasn't good enough. So I think those moments in terms of playing, like just build a muscle of I need to prove someone wrong or use it as motivation. So I think that just for any like athlete that might be listening to it, if something doesn't go your way, you have a choice of am I going to bunker down and get back in the gym and improve my game, or am I going to be like, oh, okay, I got cut. I guess I should go do something else now. So I think half the people that make it just stick with it in whatever it is in life. It could be athletics, education, the arts. The person that just tends to just keep up and keep trying tends to get rewarded. And then I think in terms of coaching, I think too many people. I'm actually a fan of this guy. I'm rooting for JJ on the Lakers. I hope he does well. I love this podcast. I really hope I like. Oh man, but I think too many people see that journey of I'm going to do something really well, and then I'm going to be the Lakers head coach, or I'm going to be the head coach at the state championship high school team, or whatever else. I've had to coach sixth grade AAU teams. I've had to coach weekend basketball games in the middle of nowhere with kids that are shooting at the wrong basket. It is just part of the journey. And I do think it makes you a better coach because you really have to coach. You really have to, what's our strategy? Like you said earlier, if there's just five guys that can play, I can almost just roll the ball out and give a little, okay, hey, you probably should have passed that last one, or hey, let's remember to box out, or stop being lazy, let's run the okay, coach, you're right. Sorry, boom, we'll do it. Okay, here comes the alley, here comes the backdoor cut. But it's coach, I don't know what a backdoor cut is. You keep yelling backdoor cut. What is a backdoor cut? Oh crap, now I have to waste a timeout to show you what a backdoor cut is, but I needed that timeout. Or it's oh man, like we're down by 60. What am I doing? So I've had all those memories and moments and experiences. So I even tell a few of our coaches who have joined recently for our staff for whatever sport, who are just either fresh out of college, who really want to get into it. I'm like, maybe you do get a great gig or you do coach a great club team, and that isn't part of your journey or experience. But I was like, most likely, if you go coach at the Bay City AAU program, or you go coach at SF United or whatever for a soccer team, they're going to give you the young, crappy team. Like they don't know who you are. Even if you're a former college athlete, you get the fifth grade silver team. Best of luck, have fun. And then, yes, if you stay with the program for 3 or 4 years, you get to coach the 10th grade team that plays on the shoe circuit that gets to go to Vegas and Peach Jam and all that stuff. But that is part of it. So I think there isn't one specific one, but I've definitely taken my licks. I've definitely been the coach they put the running clock on and I'm just like counting down the clock with the other team, or yeah, the embarrassing the kid stops playing to ask me a question in the game. What do you mean? I was like, oh God, no, you have to keep playing the game. I think it's just part of the journey. And obviously there are the people that do just get the gig from whatever they're doing. But I think most coaches, even some of the coaches, I'm thinking like Tom Thibodeau or they started off coaching like small Division III basketball, right? Yes, now he's the coach of the New York Knicks, but he was probably coaching at like some gym in New Hampshire where there were 20 people in the stands and 18 of them were the people working the game, right? Like, so I think it's just part of the journey.
Yeah, no doubt. That's hilarious. All right, last question. What have you most recently changed your mind on? And I'm always curious about growth mindset stuff where, hey, I used to believe this. I was pretty dug in. You couldn't convince me otherwise. And now I'm over here and here's why.
Yeah, no, I think so. I'm fortunate enough, lucky enough, me and my wife welcomed our first child about 8 months ago. So I think that's just completely changed my outlook on just like the work-life balance. I was definitely a gym rat before. I'll wake up early, I'll stay late. You want to get extra shots up, you want to watch film, whenever, weekends, weekdays, I don't care. Now there has to be some quality to the work. And I think it also puts like accountability on the athletes too. I think in these small schools, we all get to know each other pretty well. So like most of the kids I coach have met my wife and have met my son. So they understand that now. So those are conversations we have where, hey guys, I'm willing to meet you Saturday at 9 o'clock to get shots up. But if no one wants to do it, I'm going to go home and hang out with my son and wife. And if we don't do this for a couple of weeks, then I'm going to stop offering up Saturday morning like shoot arounds, where before is I'm going to offer it every Saturday. If you build it, they will come mentality. Now it's like, I'll build it if you want to build it with me, but I'm not going to be out here just doing it on my own. So that's definitely for sure a different mindset for me.
I love that. I love that. It's a great way to end. Coach, thanks for being with us today. Appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing you when I come up there to the city.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on.